Good morning and welcome to Chemical Week's Financial Outlook and Sustainability Forum and Awards. This session will discuss Scope 3 emissions reporting for the chemical industry, specifically a recently launched framework developed by Together for Sustainability. This framework provides specific calculation instructions for emissions from cradle to gate for chemical materials and harmonizes product carbon footprint calculation approaches across the industry. We have a lot of ground to cover in just 30 minutes, so I'm going to leave it to our speakers to more expertly set the stage for how this will drive innovation and transparency on what has been a particularly challenging topic for the chemical industry. We have Stephen Brughmans, Senior Vice President, Global Direct and Logistics Procurement at BASF. He is a Together for Sustainability Steering Committee member. Actually, both of our speakers are. And Stephen is also TfS Scope 3 GHG Emissions Program CPO sponsor. Do I have that right?
Correct, Rebecca.
BASF has been heavily involved in TfS, delivering the co-chair of the work packages that developed PCF and is managing stakeholder outreach. We also have Thomas Udesen, Global Head of Procurement at Bayer. He is TfS Steering Committee member. Bayer has been heavily involved in TfS, delivering the co-chair of the work packages, developing an IT sharing solution, which we will talk about in a bit. I'm going to start off by just, the first question goes to both speakers. What is the guideline? What does it deliver? What need does it meet? And I guess maybe we'll start with Stephen. You want to start?
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. So maybe let me explain a little bit about the background, right? So calculating carbon footprint of products provides the best product level information for the identification, tracking, and reduction of Scope 3 greenhouse gas emissions. Now, in the past, there was a problem, and that is that there was no common approach how those PCFs should be calculated, or not in detail. That meant that if two suppliers would calculate PCF based on the exact same data, there could be differences between the calculated PCFs. And this is exactly what now TfS wants to change. So making a clear guideline that everybody with the same data comes to the same results. So what is this guideline? It is a first of its kind, industry specific, made for chemistry, step-by-step instruction guide on how to calculate PCFs. It also explains the allocation rules of the CO2 being produced or being bought, how it is to be allocated to the different products in a chemical value chain. It was, as said, specially developed for the chemical industry and is compliant with the ISO and the greenhouse gas emissions protocol. And I think that's very important. So it fits perfectly to other more general standards. And on top, we as TfS made it open source, making sure that other industries that want to use or copy the approach can do this without problem. So this is a little bit of background to what it is, but probably very interesting also, what does it deliver? It is a big step, or we consider a big step towards the big target being decarbonization, reduction of CO2 emissions. Now, if suppliers work on their CO2 emission, reduce their CO2 emissions, they know how they can calculate this in their PCFs. And procurement organization, buyers, they know, oh, TfS standards was used, so they know they can build on this data. And this means that they can reward suppliers that work on their product carbon footprints, or they can even select suppliers based on the product carbon footprints. And this is why we believe that it's such an important step, that all of this comparison can be done on an apples to apples honest situation, so that we really drive real decarbonization, real change in the chemical industry.
Stephen, anything you'd like to add?
Well, I think I mean, you said it all beautifully there, Stephen. I think the fact that we are creating one language, that we can take the confusion out of the game, that everybody who is associated with our industry, both upstream and downstream, can now focus on one language. They help step by step, because that's really what we hear engaging with our suppliers. Most companies understand what needs to happen. Most companies fail to understand how exactly to do that. And this is really the version 1.0 on step by step, as Stephen is saying, how do we get going on this one? So it will save time. It will make companies who engage with this much more resilient, robust in also engaging with their customers when they ask them, so tell us about product XYZ, what is the characteristics of your CO2 footprint on these products. So we do consider it quite a historic milestone, because this is really what the world has been in desperate need of.
Thomas, the next question is for you. So the product carbon footprint launched, I believe, in September, correct? And you added corporate accounting and reporting guidelines just a week ago, 2 weeks ago. A more robust, full open source guideline. What are the implications, benefits, opportunities there?
But I think the position has been from us all along that this is a learning process, and it's a process where we want to have a dialogue. And if we get smarter by collecting feedback from our partners and suppliers, we want to make sure that this is incorporated. And we also want to make sure we move fast enough and we don't wait for the perfect solution. So from a mindset perspective, I think we want to reflect all those agile principles and make sure that there is a chance for everybody to contribute. And that's exactly what we had with the first version, which was, of course, very good in terms of the general framing. We also recognized that there was a need of hardwiring all of these requirements into the systems that support companies in making sure that they are credibly decarbonizing with a language that everybody supports. And again, so it's about the credibility of the system. It's about the speed by which you can make the translations, make it available to your customers. That was really what we wanted to do. We also, again, and Stephen mentioned that, whilst it is clearly designed for the chemical industry, we see that it carries such a potential also for our customers and even for our suppliers, that they can adopt this. They can also provide us feedback, and we as a TfS community will also make sure that this is reflected as we move forward.
Stephen, anything to add?
No, I think Thomas said it very well. It's really about supporting the drive towards improvement, towards reduction of CO2 emissions, towards decarbonization. And this tool really makes it possible to get a reward, to claim that the good work you did by reduced PCF, so you can claim this, and in a very trustworthy way if you use the TfS standard. So I think, as Thomas said, it's really a very big step with big benefits, either for supplier, but also customers. Supplier can claim their good work, try to get rewards, try to get every additional business. The customer, he can now use this data, use it for his own footprints, and bring lower product carbon footprints to his customers and to society. So we see this like a win-win, and this will drive competition, but in a way we all want it. Competition towards lower product carbon footprint materials. And I think, therefore, we're really proud in TfS that we could make a contribution to this by making this standard.
And I think maybe just building on that, so again, clearly so many more companies are taking this topic seriously, and thankfully so are many governments. as we speak, in multiple governments, American as well, has been introducing new requirements around public procurement. So this is a topic which is on everybody's top of mind. And if we do not create the common language up front before everybody starts moving into execution mode, there is a real risk of chaos. And we've seen that in other areas where the world really needed a standard, and the standard came too late, and it was really very difficult for the industry to course correct. In this particular case, we had our first conversation, Stephen, what is it? It's 18 months ago. I mean, we predicted that there would be this need, and we're quite proud actually that we started already back then, and we are ready to help now as the attraction is being seen across the world.
Now, I'm assuming, you've looked at, applying this to, as you were developing how you would apply this to your own organizations. You maybe want to give a case study on how that process looked. Stephen, Thomas, whoever wants to start.
Maybe I can start.
Sure.
So again, I think both of our organizations were deeply involved, and of course they were also not just operating within our own organizations. We have, thankfully now, with 39 members in TfS, we have a very good community where they're excellent at knowledge sharing. But we chose to go in with maximum commitment, also to understand the challenge and in a way shape something that we felt was also relevant, also for life science in general. So not exclusively chemistry, but also some of the adjacent businesses that we also have as a company. Crop science and seeds are obvious places here. So we did have our procurement team deeply involved. We had our sustainability team. They were instrumental in providing feedback. This is likely to work. This is not likely to work. Both of our organizations also engaged with our suppliers. So we had both our, let's say, key and strategic suppliers, but we quite consciously had some large suppliers, but also small ones that we were able to accommodate their uniqueness into the final proposal that we had. And that was the September version. Now we have had sort of version 2.0 coming along. So that was in the what is the guidelines and how do we make sure it's open sourced in a way. Then the second engagement was, of course, our own teams. How do we train our own procurement team members across the world? Here, TfS has Academy, where much of the knowledge of the how do you do it, why do you do it has been captured. So we've been making sure that there's capacity building across the procurement teams. Now we are working with our suppliers, making sure that it's being rolled out to suppliers. They also have access to the TfS Academy so that they have knowledge at their fingertip. We are making sure that this is now reflected in our contracts, and we have an updated supplier code of conduct that will go live here on January 1st, 2023. We will also use this as a way of enhancing, strengthening the communication with our suppliers. We will be requesting more of our suppliers when it comes to target setting and also how do we capture that. And this is really what we are focusing on now for 23. So a lot of focus has been on the first launch. We have our digital solution. I think maybe Stephen can open the Pandora's box and talk a little bit about the technology solution. That has been in focus, and now we are really pushing start, and we are going into execution mode.
That is a tremendous amount of input to sort through. Stephen, would you have anything to add and maybe start talking about the IT solution as well?
Yeah, so so maybe just one comment on the implementation of this. It's clear that it's two-sided, right, as Thomas said. So every company will have to calculate PCFs, yeah, as a supplier. Therefore, you need to collect your upstream scope 3 at 1 and 2, have a tool to calculate your carbon footprints, and depending on the complexity of your value chain, can be a significant tool. So it is true that it's quite some work. But by the tool we now made, we hope to make it at least clear what's to be done, and that you can implement now one tool which is then valid for the next X years, right? And then you have the other side, the buying side, and that's what Thomas said. We're now also in BASF training our buyers to make these PCFs a buying criteria, to select, to reward, to come up with programs together with your suppliers to reduce their footprints. And that's the buying side of this entire topic. And I think both will have to come together, and then we will drive throughout the entire chemical value chain improvement. And I think that is also what Thomas was saying. Now on this tool, this is the next step, right? So now we made a guideline that everybody can use. So we hope that now in the next months, more and more companies calculate their PCF based on this. But then we asked ourselves, is it enough? No. And we came to the conclusion, no, we don't stop there. We also want to develop an IT tool to efficiently and effectively exchange those PCFs. Right now, you can imagine this is being done by emails. Can you please supply me a PCF? So quite primitive. Then it gets sent, and you need to put it in a database. And all of this we want to automate with a very smart IT tool, which is currently being developed. It will be piloted among the TfS members in the first half of next year, and hopefully by this time next year, we will be in a rollout phase of this IT tool among all suppliers that want to use it. So this is also something we're working on, and I think Thomas said it very nicely. This is the good thing about TfS, that both in the development of the standard, but also in the development of the tool, we can combine know-how of 39 large, mid-sized, and small companies. So that's why we're quite confident, as we were with the standard, that we will come up with an IT tool that can really bring what everybody needs out of this.
And I think maybe if I can just add, because again, the IT tool is really the consequence of the feedback we've had across our members, but also with our suppliers here. And one of the things that they have raised to us repeatedly is also, of course, we want to make sure that we have access over our data. So those sort of sensitivities around who owns the data, how do we make sure it is open source? That's what we are building into the solution, because such solution literally doesn't exist on the market. And I think that's this reiterative dimension that has been very, very helpful. There's, of course, also a lot of aspects that are relevant when it comes to competitive nature. So we want to make sure that we respect all the antitrust regulations so that nobody knows who is actually doing with whom. TfS is building on a strong legacy of doing this very well. We have 12,000 assessments in our portfolio. We have 700 audits in our portfolio, and to this day, nobody knows, who exactly is doing with whom. And that sort of rigor around antitrust and compliance is, of course, something that has made us stronger and allows us to operate freely within the guardrails that we need to follow. And all that is also getting now baked into the IT solution. And I think, again, it gives us also confidence as companies that we are not, in a way, moving outside of what the regulators are allowing us to do.
So both of you are procurement guys. So this is a great question for you. The idea of supply chains as strategic business differentiators, people talk about it a lot. Are you seeing that in buying patterns, and where does the PCF fit in to that? Maybe Stephen, you want to start?
Sure, Rebecca. I think it's getting very real, Rebecca. So obviously, the problem was in the past with a couple of the sustainability topics that they were hard to put in numbers. And this is different now with the CO2 topic. The CO2 topic is extremely tangible, and if a good guideline, right, it is really trustworthy numbers. So this will be very measurable, tangible, and we really see it happening in BASF, that we get more and more requests from our customers to low PCF products obviously, we look at what we can do in-house, scope 1, scope 2, but look at our suppliers, scope 3, what can they do? So, and I think making it now a buying criteria is a consequence of this entire drive towards low product carbon footprint products. And let's be honest, the chemical industry has significant CO2 emissions. And therefore, we said, as Thomas said 2 years ago, okay, let's work hard on it to make it as tangible as possible. And now we bring the TfS guideline to help us with this. So, but to your question, I think, Rebecca, yes, it is tangible and it's happening right now.
Thomas?
And good so, right? I think we're all, right now, we are watching the discussions in COP27. We saw COP26, and of course, the topic of sustainability has a big component of decarbonization. But I think also here that the message across all the conversations is not enough is happening. You know, the current trajectory of the world is one that means that we will miss the ambitions that we have set ourselves with the Paris Agreement. So, you know, this is a decade of action. This is where companies, governments, social, civil organizations will in a way need to get together and collaborate in new ways. And I think that's what is exciting about TfS. We've been around for 11 years. We actually know how to collaborate, and also we know how to compete. But there are areas where we will compete and there are areas where we will collaborate. And I think the world is really asked to look at the way that we live our lives, how we are living our industries in new ways. And here we have a strong experience that we can also make available. That's what we want to do. And I think there's going to be then winners and losers over the next years. There are companies who get it, who will say, yes, we will be collaborating in the area of sustainability and responsible practices. And they will, you know, get the tools to make sure that they will be successful and they will be out there in a decade from now. And I do suspect that there are many who will not see the light and who will, in a way, choose to go on their own. And I think to those companies, I would imagine that they will have a really, really hard time. They will probably not be surviving, and probably rightfully so, right? I think we want to make sure that the responsible players are the ones who stand behind once we've gone through this decade of action. So I feel happy that I work with amazing people like Stephen and the other members in TfS, because we have declared we want to be winners. We want to be standing here once we have gone through the next decade. And I think our invitation to everybody is to, you know, come along. This is, I think, this African saying where it's if you want to go fast, you go alone. And if you want to go far, you go together. And that's what we are doing. We are going to go far and we are going to go together.
We have a few minutes left. I mean, very quickly. So this has been, you know, the guideline's been published for a couple months now. You know, what has been some initial feedback? Stephen, you want to start?
Yeah, sure, I can, Rebecca. So the good thing is that we already, before we published it, we had a testing phase with 50 companies globally. So also members outside of TfS. So on the quality, we were quite certain already before we published that it's very good. Now what we hear is very positive messages for companies outside of TfS that say, yes, this is what we've been waiting for, because they obviously look at efficiency part. Right now, sometimes a customer like BASF comes and say, I want to have a PCF, and here is our guideline. Then the supplier has to adjust his calculation according to the seller, so the buyer. And obviously now this will become much more efficient. So people are happy. They see people becoming, that the process will become much more efficient. Secondly, of course, a lot of companies are working on the topic of CO2 greenhouse gas emission reductions. And now they understand, oh, now I can put it into new business, in maybe even asking for premium in some cases. And I think that's a second thing why companies are happy, that they can now get a reward on what they have been doing and are doing. So overall, very positive messages, Rebecca.
Ahmed?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. They say, finally, it has arrived. It's been adopted. I think most organizations say this is great. And now, they are very keenly and to some extent impatiently waiting for the technology solution. So very quickly, it's like, I love it. I have adopted this. Now let's move to the next one. And that's, of course, why our teams are also focusing on making sure that the data can be managed in a way that's in line with the 21st century. And that's what we're working on now.
Okay. Any closing thoughts? Maybe we got 30 seconds each.
I think
look at it.
No, so we said it. We're very proud. We both, as steering committee members, we're especially proud that we did this together. Yeah, with close to 40 companies, and therefore we believe that the quality and also the power of implementation is much bigger than if a company would have been done it alone, even if it's a big company, right? But of course, you can imagine that 40 companies together is a totally different. So I can just say we're proud of it, but it's also just a step, a big step, but a step. And now the next step is the tool, and then the real work, decarbonization and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah. No, and I think so. Building on that, I guess it's just repeating the open invitation. So if you're in the chemical industry, you're not already a TfS member, join the club. We have made sure there is space for large companies, medium size, small. We have a very nice bouquet of members from across the world. All the continents are covered. So I do invite those companies, the CPOs out there to join us. It's what we need, and this is the topic where we will be working together.
And just put it clear, Thomas is totally right. We invite everybody to join TfS, but the guideline is also available online for non-TfS members, because we don't want to have a big benefits in the way of competition. We want to offer to industry a tool which allows competition. So it's available for everybody, but still the invitation stands to join TfS. As said, much other projects to follow.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for, I think it's a testament to how important sustainability is, that I don't think it's any secret that supply chains have been challenged. I don't think this has been an easy year for an easy couple years for you guys. Probably a lot of long hours. So I appreciate you taking the time to do this and to develop this tool. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca. See you later.
Take care.
Thank you.